I'm offended by some things. I'm offended by chewing gum. I'm offended by backwards pointing baseball hats. But I don't try to get a version of the blasphemy law passed to prevent people chewing gum or reversing their cap. So what if I'm offended? So what if my feelings are hurt? Does that give me the right to prevent others from expressing their opinions? However, is there a time when it is right to be offended? I think so, yes. We should be offended when children are denied a proper education. We should be offended when children are told they will spend eternity in hell. We should be offended when medical science, for example stem cell research, is compromised by... compromised, I should say, by the bigoted opinions of powerful and, above all, well-financed ignoramuses. We should be offended when voodoo of all kinds is given equal weight to science. We should be offended by hymen reconstruction surgery. We should be offended by female circumcision, euphemism for genital mutilation. This picture was taken in Africa, but it happens in Britain. I had a long conversation with a school's inspector from London, and she told me it's common. Girls are typically sent away to stay with an uncle in Bradford. We should be offended by stoning. This young Kurdish woman was stoned to death in a so-called honor killing because she wanted to marry a young man of the wrong religion. I mentioned the novelist Kingsley Amis a moment ago. His son Martin Amis is an equally distinguished novelist. And he made a very important point. Secularism contains no warrant for action. One can afford to be crude about this. When Islamists crash passenger planes into buildings or hack off the heads of hostages, they shout, "God is great." When secularists do that kind of thing, what do they shout? A critic of Martin Amis's book remarked on this. That question is meant to be rhetorical, but there's a simple answer. They shout, secularists shout, "Heil Hitler." What a truly outrageous thing to say. Whether or not Hitler was a Roman Catholic, the evidence is contradictory, he often said he was. Nobody could deny that Hitler's soldiers were as Christian as everybody else was in Europe at the time, and that means that most of them were, mostly either Roman Catholic or Lutheran. But even if Hitler was an atheist, so what? Hitler was also a vegetarian. Does that suggest that vegetarians have a special tendency to be murderous, bigoted racists? The point is that there is a logical pathway leading from religion to the committing of atrocities. It's perfectly logical. If you believe that your religion is the right one, you believe that your God is the only God, and you believe that your God has ordered you, through a priest or through a holy book, to kill somebody, to blow somebody up, to fly a plane into a skyscraper, then you are doing a righteous act. You're a good person. You're following your religious morality. There is no such logical pathway leading from atheism or secularism to any such atrocious act. It just doesn't follow. Now, it's sometimes said that humans need religion, even if it isn't true. They need the comfort of religion. I think there's something rather patronizing about that, rather condescending about it, but that's what people say. Often atheists say it. Of course, you and I are too intelligent to need religion. But what about all those poor people out there who need the comfort of religion? Humanity's need for comfort is, of course, real. But isn't there something childish, something infantile in the belief that the universe owes us comfort, in the sense that if something is comforting, that must kind of make it true? Isaac Asimov's remark about the infantilism of pseudoscience is just as applicable to religion. He said, "Inspect every piece of pseudoscience, and you will find a security blanket, a thumb to suck, a skirt to hold." And it is astonishing how many people are unable to understand that X is comforting does not imply X is true. A related plaint concerns the need for a purpose in life. To quote one Canadian critic, "The atheist may be right about God, who knows? But God or no God, it's clear that something in the human soul requires a belief that life has a purpose that transcends the material plane. One would think that a more rational than thou empiricist such as Dawkins would recognize this unchanging aspect of human nature. Does Dawkins really think that this world would be a more humane place if we all looked to the God delusion instead of the Bible for truth and comfort?" Actually, yes. Since you mention humane, yes, I do. But I must repeat yet again that the consolation content of a belief does not raise its truth value. I can't deny the need for emotional comfort, and I can't claim that the worldview adopted in my book offers any more than moderate comfort. If you're afraid of death, for example, you might superficially think that a priest who tells you that you're not really going to die would be more comforting than a scientist who tells you it is highly implausible that our individuality could survive the decay of our brains. But I have heard experienced nurses who've worked all their lives in old people's homes say that the ones who are most terrified of death tend to be the Roman Catholics. All that guilt fed from the cradle up, and the terror of purgatory and hell. As for eternal nothingness, is it really all that frightening? As Mark Twain said, "I do not fear death. I've been dead for billions and billions of years before I was born, and had not suffered the slightest inconvenience." In any case, I don't think I've ever met anyone at a funeral who dissents from the view, my view, that the non-religious parts, the eulogies, the deceased's favourite poems or music, those non-religious parts are always more moving than the prayers. I want to end by reading the opening lines of a previous book of mine, Unweaving the Rainbow. These are lines that I've long earmarked for my own funeral. We are going to die, and that makes us the lucky ones. Most people are never going to die because they're never going to be born. The potential people who could have been here in my place, but who will in fact never see the light of day, outnumber the sand grains of Sahara. Certainly those unborn ghosts include greater poets than Keats, scientists greater than Newton. We know this because the set of possible people allowed by our DNA so massively outnumbers the set of actual people. In the teeth of these stupefying odds, it is you and I, in our ordinariness, that are here. We privileged few who won the lottery of birth against all odds. How dare we whine at our inevitable return to that prior state from which the vast majority have never stirred? Thank you very much.